Hi, everyone. I'm Joy Rosa with Earthworks Acupuncture, and we're here today with special guest Dr. Montserrat Andreys.
Hello.
Dr. Andreys holds a BA in dance and pre-med from the University of Mexico and a doctorate in chiropractic medicine and a master's in exercise science. So welcome, Montserrat.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you for having me.
yeah, thanks for joining. So tell us a little bit about where you're from globally and regionally and where you're located right now.
Yes. I was born in Mexico City. My dad was Mexican and Italian. And my mother is from Honduras.
Yeah.
And yeah, hondureñas. And we are Garifuna,
Mm-hmm.
which is in particular a specific type of Honduran.
Mm-hmm.
And we came here to Chicago actually when I was 8. My family had already been living in the United States for quite a long time. Actually, my mom moved from the States down to Mexico. So we came back to Chicago and I lived there, then went to the University of New Mexico for my degree in dance and pre-med. And then came up here to Portland, which is where I live now. And yeah, that's what brings us to current place.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your journey and bridging of art and science and the birth of you are Heart Health Care for Artists.
Yes. Yes. So HEART is the acronym for Healthcare for Artists. And dance and science kind of grew equally as I did. I always thought that I would have to leave dance behind at some point, because I was pursuing sciences and delving deeper and deeper. And I thought, well, at minimum, I want to get my BA in fine art and dance and then do pre-med as my electives, because I thought, that's the only way that I'll be able to combat the societal pressures of making my sciences more important than my art. And then I thought, well, after I'm done with university, I'll probably have to leave dance behind in order to continue on to become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's because society told me that. Like, nobody else was telling me that. That was just like all that internalized pressures and value of what you should make serious in your life and what you should let go, So as I continued, I just kept seeing that I didn't have to leave it behind quite yet. And so once I graduated from school and I started my own clinical practice, I was like, well, I'll do it for now, but I won't tell any of my patients that I'm a dancer. Even though I was working with athletes, I still thought, like, if I played tennis or if I was a mountain climber, or that would be taken more seriously. But I still felt that maybe my patients wouldn't take me as seriously if I told them that I was a dancer and not like a volleyball player. I don't know. So as that continued, of course, being who I am, I was always around art and artists, and then artists needed care. And I decided that I wanted to focus a part of my practice on treating artists. And, I was already in those communities and hanging out with those people. And so it was a long road to realize that I didn't have to ever let it go. And instead it became a major, major part of my practice. And so now I still treat athletes because I work in a sports medicine clinic. But a large, large group of the people that I treat are aesthetic athletes and artists of all kinds. So yeah, that's how it kind of happened at the same time together all at once.
I love that. And I love that you do treat artists because I feel like also same thing, like societal pressures, like what's deemed worthy and legitimate as a profession and what isn't. And the artists are the vanguards of our time. I mean, that's what they've always
right now is like a perfect moment, right? Like the only people keeping us sane are the artists in my feed. Like
exactly.
every day I'm like, I love you all.
Exactly. DJs alike, all of them. Yes. So how has your artful practice of flamenco dancing encouraged or influenced or sustained you as an organizer and a healer?
Yeah, so I think that I continue my own art practice. Really keeps me in touch with how important it is for mental health and physical health, emotional health, to be able to have your outlet.
Mm-hmm.
And that if something threatens that, right, if there's an injury, if it's something that's acute, you know, like a fall or something like that, or something that's longstanding, like postural challenges, that anything that gets in the way of your ability to practice your art form, whether you do it for yourself and nobody ever sees it, to being in front of other people and displaying your work, like there's no, for me anyway, there's no difference in how valuable and important
Yeah.
the art is for somebody. Like if they just do it at home and show it to no one and it's like their own practice,
Yeah.
right? So I think when I've had my own injuries as a dancer, if somebody's telling me like, okay, you know, with this type of injury, you can't dance for 2 weeks, I'm like, you better be certain about what you're saying to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like 2 weeks is asking a lot. 2 weeks is asking an awful lot of somebody who trains all the time, to step aside from their work. You may as well like start treating me for depression and anxiety and as well as like my physical body coming back from 2 weeks of not dancing is really a lot, you know? So I think that I still have my own practice,
Mhm.
reminds me and keeps me fresh and attuned to when I'm talking to other people about what I need them to do, like what I'm really asking, you know, if I'm asking them to take time off, or even more importantly, which is something that we do in sports medicine, we look for, you can do these things, but not these things.
Right.
Or you can do these things, modify them this way, right? And so it's always about like, how can we keep people doing the things that they love, while simultaneously treating the problem so that they can get over that hurdle, right? And I think that being a dancer myself and being around a lot of other artists and being around a lot of working artists, it keeps that very urgent in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's a really wonderful skill that I want to drive home to folks who are sitting at home, especially our youth who are watching
Yeah.
this and like, you know, like their sports have halted, their dancing, their art or their artistry. And I think
Mhm.
it's just very important to like find that passion, be able to, you know, craft your wellness and your well-being around that so that you can keep at your passion to the best of your
Totally.
ability and really let yourself just blossom in all of those
Yeah.
aspects. I think that's really important. So we're entering day 12 of the United States COVID-19 pandemic, and Portland City Manager had signed on Monday an emergency stay-at-home for all non-essential businesses and services. So how in this time are you being called to action or to rest at this time for yourself and as a part and for your community?
Oh, I'll tell you. I decided to take 2 weeks off of work because I was in high exposure with patients all the time. And so I decided to take the 2 weeks just to make sure that during that time I didn't display any symptoms or anything, so that if I go back and treat urgent patients, then I can at least feel assured that I'm not transmitting to them.
Mhm.
In the meantime, you know, trying to figure out what new normal means for my days, my times. Right now, I'm trying to um, complete a number of projects that I was doing before in all of my in-between times. You know, I would do a lot of work after clinical hours and on the weekends. And so right now I'm focusing on finishing and wrapping up those projects, which actually feels like a nice pause and slow down to be able to do that.
Yes.
And also I once I decided to hit pause on my practice, I needed a few days, to be honest. It was one of the hardest emotional things I've ever had to do. I love treating in a clinical environment. I love treating one-on-one. Um, being able to take the time with an individual to really hone in on what they need and to be able to explain things and titrate it down and show them on their bodies. And um, I had these flashes during that last day that I was like, oh my gosh, this is what retirement is going to feel like. And it's going to suck. I'm going to hate it. Um, and I think a lot of people have asked me in the past with all the work that I do with heart, if my goal or my intention was to step away from clinical work and just focus on that. Like, oh, are you trying to grow it to then stop treating? And I'm like, no, I love that person-to-person interaction. And I think so many people get really incomplete, non-heart-centered healthcare. And so I really strive to provide that.
Yeah.
And, the idea, not that I myself, individual one, me, is essential in the world treating, but I know that I bring focus and attention and that I care about my patients. And I think that that's really important for people to experience so that they require that and demand that from future providers, right?
Exactly.
And so I needed time, all of that to say, to hit pause on a practice that was bursting at the seams at the moment, was really challenging. So I needed to kind of feel that and just be like, okay, whatever is happening, this will pass and things will be different, but we will be on the other side. And, I need to really feel this.
I love that this conversation is happening too, because in a time where we're asked to be at home and we are seen as non-essential providers at this time, there's a time and a place for everything. And emergency medicine is really, I mean, like, my hat's off to every single person providing healthcare right now in the field and putting themselves in, hazardous positions for everybody. Like, that's just an amazing testament to the human spirit. Also saying that I believe that we are essential in, what the next wave to come, which is teaching people preventative healthcare and also aligning with, I love the mission behind your practice, because it's not only heart healthcare for other people, but you're making sure that you're in alignment as well in order to treat people from that heart space. And that's just got a ripple effect. And I like that we're having these transparent conversations with providers, because I think more and more people really need to see that about their providers or their future providers. So I think that's important. So one way I'd like to ask, segue, is who have your biggest influences been in terms of your own self-care and your dancing or any mindfulness practices that help you ground your energy?
Yeah. I've had a few really powerful experiences receiving care myself. When I was a little girl, I had a very, very sway back, and my mom took me to a chiropractor when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And one of the things that I remember the most about that experience is that she, and in retrospect, actually, I think she was a Black woman. It's even more like, now when I think about it, at the time, I was like, hey, how are you? But she was, and it was in the student clinic. And I remember that she very explicitly turned to me and was like, this is your body. And I'm going to show you what to do. Like, your mom's job is basically to bring you to these appointments and like to do that adult part. But like, you have to do these things. Like, this isn't for somebody else to remind you.
Right.
And I remember just like nobody had ever talked to me about my agency in that
Yeah,
way,
that's amazing.
about my own healthcare.
Planting the first seed of agency. That's so important.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh, and so it had just never occurred to me. Like my health was always like something my mom did for me.
Right.
And so then I was like, these are the things my doctor told me I need to do.
Right.
And and so she has greatly influenced how I now treat my patients. I'm like,
Do you remember her name?
this,
You shout her out.
this is, I wish I did. I was so young.
Yeah.
I have these brief glimpses of the clinic, but I remember that. Like I remember her looking me in the eye and being like, this is
Yeah.
your responsibility. Um, and so wherever she is, like huge thanks to her. But then when I was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I had terrible, terrible allergies. And um, there was an acupuncturist that had an amazing reputation. I had already received acupuncture many times. My mom received acupuncture when I was a little kid for stress, when we were living in Mexico City. So like acupuncture was something that it was a very common like healthcare practice for me. So I ended up going to her. And one of the things about how she would take her notes and review is that every time I would come back, she would review her notes from the very beginning, the first thing that we had ever talked about and done. And she would always highlight like something about the new conversation that we were having. And so every time she would kind of come back and touch base on all those things. And what it did for me was that I felt like I was very, very heard when like the things I said she was documenting, but then she would repeat them back to me later or check in with them, ask me about them. And I remember already I knew that I was going to be a doctor at that point. And I remember being like, this feels amazing on the receiving end.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like she really taught me a lot about the presence that is really required in doctoring. And so I know she has influenced the way that I treat a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome because I was, looking at your website too, and you're not only doctor, dancer, but teacher, and I think
Yeah.
that's also really important and fun to do. I mean, I've enjoyed even just like doing this, and this is my extension of, helping people to learn while
Yeah.
they're sitting at home.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. So, regarding at-home care, what advice would you give your patients during this mandated stay at home, or even if people aren't your patients, like body mechanics or anything?
Yes. So the thing that the body dislikes the most is being still. Everything about our body is designed with movement in mind.
Mhm.
So the strength of our bones requires consistent pressure and the pounding, right? Like you shouldn't be stepping really hard, but like the pounding of walking, the muscles in order to be healthy and get blood flow in and out require movement. Your lymphatic system requires movement to get the lymph back up to the heart. Your respiratory system requires, movement so that it is working a little bit harder. Um, Almost every tissue in the body is designed to work around movement.
Mhm.
And so, since our body doesn't have a lot of methods of communication with us, what it gives us is pain signals. And then, kind of like a baby, you have to figure out like, do you need a diaper change? Do you need a bottle? Do you want me to just turn you? Do you want to cuddle? You have to figure out what that signal that your body is trying to communicate to you is. So, but many, many times, it's not about a right posture or wrong posture because our body is meant to be able to move through any of our capacity um, of range. But what the body is not built for is being in any one of those ranges for long periods of time over and over and over. So it's not that any posture is bad, it's that being stationary is not helpful for your body systems. So if you feel discomfort, or even before you do, just give yourself a schedule, set a timer for every 30 minutes, get up or drink lots of water. So you have to get up and use the restroom, like whatever works for you, but move. Stretch your arms overhead, do 3 jumping jacks, throw on a song and just be goofy. Like, it doesn't have to be something super subscribed. You don't have to do like 10 squats and 5 push-ups and it's just move. Your body is designed for it and requires it.
That's great. I was just going to ask too if you typically include something creative and something chiropractic, like put on your headphones and have your own dance party or something. Like
yeah the best, I have patients ask me all the time, like, what's the best thing for this, what's the best thing for that? I'm like, the one that you're going to do.
Yeah, exactly. The one
if you don't like it, you're not going to do it. That's not the one for you. It's just like, I think that's one of the things about our culture right now is that people often will tell people like, do this, do that. This is what's good. This is what's bad. And it's just like, look, let's demystify a lot of these concepts, right? Like, our bodies have been our bodies for millions of years, right? Like, this is a lot of the wisdom that we have about our bodies is ancient because it's the same system, right? And so let's not make it so that it seems like only specific people have the key information to optimize. Like, yes, we can have higher education. Yes, we can be more specifically trained to know how to assist a specific thing, but get up and move. Like, we can all do that. It does. Yeah. Do you want to take a class with somebody? Do you want to do a specific workout? Do you want to reach specific goals? That's a whole different thing. But get up, move, throw on some music. Like, that's available to all of us.
Yes. So in what ways do you think that this pandemic is calling us to action as individuals and collectively, in your opinion? We're talking about movement, and I'm thinking movement, meta movement.
Meta movement. I think I saw a meme that said, like, the earth is telling us all to go to our room and think about what we've done. I really feel that, the pace of capitalism, the expectations of producing, I definitely fall into that. I am an extremely energetic person, and I love to be in service. And so capitalism is like, we love you. Let's take you. Let's take advantage of you. Squeeze every drop. But I think that I know my introvert friends are like, thank God. It's about time we all get to stay home. And so, I do think that it's an incredibly rich, fertile time to think about what we have created for ourselves. My partner and I, we go for walks every night, and we were talking about that last night. We have all lived in this idea that our life, our world is a construction, right? And I was always like, very academically, yes, that's my life is a construction. But right now, like, look at how quickly everything that we have built for ourselves, everything that we've created, has come to an absolute halt, and we are at a completely new reality. And so it's really making that concrete. Like, even if it's painful, even if it hurts, reality can change very, very quickly. And so that's going to be a great reminder for me in the future. If I'm ever creating something that is actually not aligned with what I want, or we start building and creating it, and then we're like, oh, I don't want that. And so I think, go ahead.
Oh, no. I want you to finish your thought.
So I think that in the lesson for me right now, out of many for this is I can change my reality. And even though it can be really scary and maybe will come with a lot of uncertainty, um, if something isn't aligning, this time is showing me that I I can let go of whatever I'm doing and maybe start over or redirect or something like that. And I think that I would have felt that to be scarier
Mhm.
even a month ago.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And I love that we're talking about checking in, full body check in. Like, are you saying a full body yes or a full body eh?
Mm,
And that goes with anything. And I think that's why this time of pause is really important. And every single person that I have had conversation with and talk story with, it's been so wonderful to hear that we're really in a time of flipping the paradigm. Yes, it looks scary. Yes, it looks like the end, but it's also the beginning. It's the end of something that wasn't working, and this is a new wave, and we're just planting seeds along the way.
mhm.
I think that that is just so paramount at this time. So I really just thank you for sharing that piece. And on that, I was wondering, how are you providing self-care for you? You mentioned walks with your partner, uh,
Mhm.
but is self-care different typically, how you provide for yourself than how you provide for patients, or are they similar?
The principles are the same
Mm-hmm.
because I believe in what I'm telling my patients, and so I live it all the time. I eat well, I eat nutritious food, whole foods. I try to stay as hydrated as I can, and I move, a lot. So right now, we're doing a morning movement time,
Fun.
which has been really, really fun. So it's kind of more rehab. It looks a little bit more like rehab movements and things that, oh yeah, I've been wanting to work on this one thing for a long time. So this is a perfect opportunity. Um, and then I'm running, I would say, every 2 or 3 days and going for nightly walks,
Awesome.
trying to increase that. And it's really nice to get out and get some fresh air.
Yeah, I know. Even walking out to the mailbox this morning, I was like, it's springtime.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, your IG account, your Instagram account is so interactive and really motivational. In what ways are you providing for your community as a chiropractor at this time? And are you taking
Yeah.
patients?
So I'm looking into what the options will be in telemedicine.
Mhm.
A lot of things have opened up with our licensure with insurance companies to make it possible. So I'm looking at what that will look like. I'm also finishing up some other projects that I had started, a webinar for tattoo artists. And then also all of those videos that I have on Instagram, I have always wanted to transfer onto my YouTube channel as separate series.
Yeah.
But that is a whole other beast and situation, especially because at this point I have, I don't know, maybe like 150, 200 videos. So the idea of getting all of that on YouTube is like daunting. But now I have the time, right? So that's part of the projects that I'm doing right now. And I've had a lot of people tell me that their body is starting to hurt from like being in poor ergonomics, working from home. So I'm gonna do a work from home like rollout stretch series,
Awesome. Ooh,
which I think will be really fun. Yeah. And then I had already been thinking about switching. So on my Instagram, I have series that I do at a time that are kind of bracketed. So you can tell as you're scrolling through, like, okay, this is a series, this is a series.
ooh, I love
And up until now, I have um, taken my clinical information about particular artists and then built series around them.
awesome.
yeah, it's really fun. But more recently, I'd been thinking that a new way of doing that might be to do something kind of similar to what you're doing right now, which is interview an artist, ask them specifically what things they would need for their bodies to help their aches and pains, and then build a series around that art form or style, but based on a specific individual.
That's great.
So that will be coming up next. There's a ceramicist that I want to do it with, and a film director that I want to do it with. So that will be, yeah, already. I mean, it's like I'm home and I have so much to do.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, I really do love that people are really delving into their creativity while they're healing, with and amongst all of this. Like, and this was probably like a few days before, like, Corona really hit. I mean, I think it was, I posted this on my Instagram, but it's a Grace Lee Boggs quote, and it says, "A revolution that is based on people exercising creativity in the midst of devastation is one of the greatest historical contributions of mankind." One, I
Woo!
love Grace Lee Boggs and RIP, but also, like, that's exactly what's happening right now. And I really admire everybody that's answering the call and stepping up. And coming to a close. But again, if you'll just say your name, your place of business, and we'll link all the contact info below on the YouTube channel. But Montserrat, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you. So I'm Dr. Montserrat Andreys. I'm a sports chiropractor out of Portland, Oregon. I am also founder of Heart Healthcare for Artists, which you can find on Instagram, Facebook, and online. And I do have some stuff on YouTube, but more to come.
Is it name?
Yep, all the same name across all platforms, Heart Healthcare for Artists. And yeah, I wish you a lot of like solace and search for joy. And I hope that you find the gifts of this experience for yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you, Montserrat. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Bye.